so much. I think you're in for a special treat, if you will, all of the cell phones and so forth, unless you're trying to record something. So we don't have a lot of time. What Ron is going to do is decide to do is not to talk about anything. He's just going to entertain questions, but I think it's fitting that I read some of his bio so that you at least know kind of what to talk about. So as I read it, I hope I'm doing justice to it. Ron, I cut out like a whole lot of stuff. So Ron's name is synonymous with intelligence in the world of music, where he spent most of his time in his career paving the way for others, especially in the entertainment community. He was raised by his mother and grandmother in the 7th Ward of New Orleans. As a young student, he was selected to attend the NOCA, the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, which at that time was filled with talent like Wynton Marsalis, Branford Marsalis, Terrence Blanchard, Reginald Veal, Donald Harrison, and Harry Connick Jr., to name a few. After graduating from high school, Ron attended Grambling State University and studied music education, later transferring to Southern University in Baton Rouge to study with the renowned jazz musician Alvin Batiste. I have to tell you my Alvin stories, man. And from there he moved to Boston, attended Berklee School of Music to study film scoring, music production, and engineering. In 1989, he got a call for a position, and this is something I hope that y'all pay close attention to, and I talk about this a lot, but it's kind of indicative of what happens in our lives when we don't know what we're doing. We just kind of follow some instinctive path. But it says in 1989, he got a call for a position at the House of Hits recording studio, where such artists as New Kids on the Block, Perfect Gentleman, New Edition recorded their projects. But there was a minor problem. It was a janitor's position. Although disappointed, Ron accepted the position with the advice of a wise mentor, and for 6 months, Ron performed his janitorial duties. He did those by day, but because he had the keys to the building, he took advantage of it and studied at night, reading his recording manuals and preparing for sessions to record. His diligence and his night stays prepared him for another unexpected call, which was from Maurice Starr, asking if there was any engineers around. And the engineers were gone. By instinct, Ron responded to Mrs. Starr saying, "I can do it." Surprisingly, Starr came in and Ron recorded him, mixed down, and made copies for him of their project. 1 week later, Ron entered the studio where he came in to find out that he didn't have a janitor's job, and he was a little confused. So he talked to Sidney Burton, who at that time was the studio manager. And of course, he found out that Maurice Starr had promoted him to assistant engineer, which of course became his launching pad. Over the next year, Ron worked with such acts as the New Kids on the Block and Perfect Gentleman, and he did soundtracks for the Sister Act soundtrack recording, and then for South Central soundtrack and many other soundtracks. In 1989, he was an active duty United States Marine, and he was activated to Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm, where he received various commendations and medals for his service there. In 1994, Ron accepted a job with longtime friend Wynton Marsalis as a music copyist. Over the next few years, he developed his skill as a conductor and arranger, where he worked with various dance companies, as well as Bill Cosby, Dizzy Gillespie, and within the Bill Clinton inauguration and at the Lincoln Center for Jazz. And while he was with Marsalis, He can also be found to have credit and awards for over 60 albums, 5 books, 2 PBS specials, Telly Award, Grammy Awards, and certificates with Wynton Marsalis for Standard Time Volume 1. And I own that record, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful recording. Plaque for jazz's first Pulitzer Prize, Blood on the Fields. And if you will, that particular thing that Wynton did is related to a lot of the African American history. So if you talk about that a little bit, I'm going to ask questions about that one. And of course, he continued to work with New Kids on the Block and received awards for Hanging Tough and over 70 gold and platinum award plaques and 32 Billboard awards for songs and albums that were in the top 10 charts. Apart from these accolades, he also worked with Motown recording artist Brian McKnight as a production and stage manager. In 1995, Ron built the Soul Kitchen recording studio, which became the #1 recording and mix studio for urban and gospel music in Mississippi. He also started the Carbo Foundation. In 2007, Ron successfully completed a master's degree from Jackson State University in technology education. Presently has completed a JD degree from Mississippi College School of Law and is in the final stage of completing his PhD degree in educational leadership at Jackson State and MBA degree from Mississippi College. And this is a starting point and where I left off. I try to give you an indication as to who is in the room and some of the questions that you might be inspired to ask just by knowing some of these things. So without further ado, my friend Ron Carbo. And thank you for coming. Thank you so much for coming.
How y'all doing today? We're going to make this real informal. I'm going to sit on this bench because I'm tired. I've been traveling. So we're going to sit on the bench and we're going to make it real simple. Well, Mr. Sanders basically told the majority of the stuff I was going to talk about. So we're going to have to wing this a little bit. But I'm Ron Carbo. I'm from New Orleans. I grew up in the St. Bernard Project, single family home. Like you said, I went to Grambling. Left there because I was looking for something outside of music education, being a band director or a choral director. So I was looking for something else. I didn't know what, but I was looking for something different. So then I went to Southern Human Jukebox, in case anybody in the band, that's where I marched. It was pretty much the same thing there. I do that every school I go to. So I did the same thing there. I was looking for something. So I left. I couldn't, Southern was great. I had a good time, but it wasn't what I was looking for. So then I found out about Berkeley. So I sat out a year because I couldn't afford to go to Berkeley at the time, because at that time, back in the early 80s, you know, Grambling and Southern, they were like $4,000 a year. Berkeley was 13, and I was on financial aid at 4,000. So you know, I didn't have no money. So I had to work in a cafeteria and cook a little bit for a year and raise some money to go to Berkeley. So when I got to Berkeley, I took up a dual major. I was film scoring and music production and engineering, but the tuition was so high because I was 21 when I got there. So you can't stay on campus if you're 21 at Berkeley. You have to stay off campus. So my daily schedule was, I went to school from 9 a.m. to 4. I worked at UPS from 6 to 10. I worked as a security guard at a hotel from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. That was my schedule for 3 years. And everybody said, well, when did you sleep? Well, I slept between classes during the day. Because at night I would do my homework. I'd go down to the lounge in the hotel and I would do all my homework because they had a piano. So that's how I survived for 3 years. My senior year, it was a guy named Greg McPherson. He was one of the few black professors at Berkeley. So he had left to go work at a studio. He had retired from Berkeley and go work in the studio. So I would see Greg. I didn't know that the studio he was working at was Maurice Starr's studio. I didn't know that. Because I had just read an article about him in the newspaper. New Kids was picking up, New Edition was rolling, and he had a lot of other stuff. So I was like, man, I want to meet this dude. So what happened, I would run into Greg every once in a while, and I would say, hey man, I want to learn how to produce and engineer. He said, well, man, come on to the studio. But of course, as most students do, I procrastinated. So I waited 3 or 4 months, didn't do anything, so I ran into him again. I asked him again, and he said, well, man, just come to the studio. And of course, I procrastinated again. So then I called him at church one Sunday, and he said, I said, well, man, I want to learn how to produce. He said, don't ask me that no more. You're wasting my time. So at that point, I was cool. I was like, all right, cool. I was going to just finish Berkeley and go back to New Orleans, probably work at Popeyes or something. You know, because who knows what it was going to be. So then he tricked me. He said, oh, man, I need a ride to the studio. Can you drop me off? So I said, all right, fine. So I brought him to the studio. Then he said, come on upstairs. I still didn't know what studio I was at. So I went upstairs and I went in and all of these machines and buttons. I was like, man, I always wanted to do this. And he was like, well, man, I've been trying to get you here for the last 6 months. So basically the story is I wasted 6 months of my career, at least I wasted 6 months of opportunity just basically procrastinating. I wasted that much time. So I was there then. You know, once I was there, I was hooked. I was like, you couldn't get me out. I was cutting class. I was doing all kinds of stuff just to make sure I was in the studio. I didn't want to miss anything. So I was hanging out. So Greg said, well, look, this is what I want you to do. He said, I want you to call me every day at 5:35. You call me at 34 or 36. I'm not going to answer. He was basically wanting to see how disciplined I was going to be. So I would literally sit there and watch my watch, and when it hit 5:35, I would call him. And he would tell me to come to the studio. So, you know, he wanted to call me every day to make sure that you don't miss anything. But he did that to me to make sure that how disciplined and how serious I was going to be about it. So then when we got to the studio, he had this big chair, like a big, one of those kind that you can pull a little handle and kick your feet up. He had one of those chairs in the studio. He said, you sit in that chair, don't say nothing, don't touch nothing, don't move, don't do anything. I just want you to watch, pay attention to what we're doing, learn how people deal with attitudes, learn how they deal. In other words, you was learning studio etiquette. I sat in that chair for 3 months. Girls would come to, you know, the studio always got plenty of girls. So girls would come to the studio and look at me and was like, what's wrong with him? He must be slow or something. He don't say nothing, he just sit there. But I was being disciplined. I was playing my role because this was something I wanted to do. So eventually, he called me one night. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. He said, hey, man, they got a job opening at the studio. I said, bet. So I was hooked. I was like, all right, what is it? Engineer, whatever. Now, granted, I had no skills yet. I hadn't developed any skills. He said, it's a janitor position. I was like, I don't want this job. I don't even clean my own apartment. I don't want this job. He was like, take the job. You have keys to the studio. You get to go to all the sessions, you go to all of the shows, you get to work with all of the artists. So I was like, all right, man. So I would work in the studio from 12 noon to 12 midnight as a janitor. Then I would stay from 12 to about 3 or 4 in the morning because whatever I watched them do in the daytime, I would stay after and practice on the machines and read the manuals and stuff and learn how to do it. And whatever I couldn't figure out during the day, during that nighttime, I would go back and bug them during the daytime and say, man, how did you do this? That's how serious I was. I had a backpack with a pair of drawers, toothbrush, and stuff like that, because I literally lived in the studio. Even though I was paying rent at an apartment, I was there because I didn't want to miss nothing. And I wasn't getting paid after hours. I wasn't getting paid to live in there. I was just there because it was serious to me. So Maurice called, like he was telling the story, Maurice called like 3 o'clock one morning and said, first thing he said, well, what the hell are you doing in the studio? I said, oh, you know, I'm still cleaning up. I got some stuff to do. You know, of course I was lying. And then he said, I had any of the engineers there. I said, nobody's here. He said, well, I had an idea I wanted to put down. And, you know, as musicians, y'all know, if you get an idea, you better put it down at that moment because if you put it off to the next day, it's gone. And you ain't gonna never get it back, it's gone. So you have to put it down. So I told him, I said, man, I could do the session. I had never done a session in my life. That was my very first session ever. I was taking a chance, but what's the worst thing could happen? I was already a janitor. I couldn't get no worse than that. So he came in and we recorded. And I put the stuff on cassette. We were using cassettes at the time. And he took it. I came to work on that. I was on a Thursday. I came to work Friday. Everything was cool. When I came to work Monday, there was another janitor. I was like, damn, I done lost my job. As a janitor, I was like, I done lost it. I went in the office complaining and fussing. And they said, nah, Maurice moved you up to assistant engineer. Just because I took a chance. But I knew I had enough skills to be able to record that vocal. Now, if I had to mix the record, I wouldn't have been able to, but I knew I could do that. And I just took a shot, and that opened the door. And then from there, I went from assistant engineer to mix engineer to mastering. And we sold almost 40 million records. So we did really well. We sold almost 40 million records. My first project sold 12 million copies. And we did a video. I got a Grammy for a New Kids on the Block video and American Music Award. So we did very well. So it was just a matter of being in the right place at the right time. So basically, don't procrastinate. If the door opens, you gotta go. You gotta get in, but you gotta have your skills up. You can't. Opportunities knock all the time. All the time. Like I had a friend. He was one of my best friends. I was touring with Brian McKnight, and our sound man had a little nose problem. So when we was flying out of LA, flying down to Tunica to do a show, he missed the flight. I ain't heard from him yet. I don't know where he is. That was 10 years ago. But one of my friends he met us in Tunica and said, hey man, he ran up to me and said, man, I want to do sound for the group, blah, 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 blah. And I said, well man, I never heard what I don't know how good your skills are. I don't know what you can do. But, I can vouch for your character, but I can't vouch for your skills because I haven't heard you do anything. So he went and asked the tour manager, and then the tour manager came to me and said, well, what do you think about this guy? I said, as a person, he's a great person. I don't know about his skills. He said, well, look, if you want to give him a chance, tell him to get on the bus. He can leave with us. So I went to the guy and I told him, I said, look, man, this is not a little hole-in-the-wall club gig. This is a real pro-level gig. Can you handle this? Yeah, man, I can do it. And I said, well, look, I got 2 positions open. You can be a drum tech. All you got to do is set up the drums, take them down, polish them, make sure they look good. Or you can take all of the pressure of being in front of a house engineer. They pay the same amount of money. They pay the same gig. It was $2,300. Well, it was $2,300 a week plus $350 for per diem. They both play the same. Now, you can set up drums and take them down, or you can have this high-pressure job over here. It's your choice. I said, I recommend you take the drums till you learn the job and do this. He said, no, I want to do this over here. I said, all right. I hired him. That next week, he was fired. He lasted 1 week. He got 1 paycheck. Why? Anybody know why he was fired? He wasn't ready. He stepped into a position he wasn't ready for. The trip part about it, he was a drummer. I was like, that was the easiest gig for you. All you do is set him up and take him down. That was the easy gig.
He didn't want to be a janitor.
He didn't want to be the janitor. But that was the trip part about it, because the tour had a lot of money, the drum set sat on a platform on wheels. You didn't even take the set down. All you do is put the case over, take the cymbals off, put the case over. You didn't even have to break the set down. So all you do is take the top off, put the cymbals on, and it's running. That's it. That was his job. Make sure they were clean. I would have took that job. I was willing to give up my position. So what we gonna do? So that's just. Yeah. That was a good gig. When we did New Kids tour, they were paying $6,500 a week. And I had one of the most unique jobs on that tour that you could ever imagine. I ran the lip sync tape. I probably shouldn't be putting that on tape, but I ran a lip sync tape. It's all known, everybody know it. But that was the job. I sat under the stage and looked through a grill, and I would cue them when the tape started rolling. And when they start singing, they would start singing, and as soon as they say, "Good evening, Mississippi," blah, 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 and then as soon as they get ready to start singing, they'll kill the mics and run the tape. And when they got close, in order to give it a real effect, when they would go in front of the speakers, we'll turn the mic on, push the levels up so it'll feed back. It'll go woo, and then you turn it back off, and it'll go back. So now to give it a real effect. So that was the job. But that group made almost $600 million. I mean, that's what it is. That's what you see that a lot now. Beyonce lip syncs a large portion of our show. Janet does. Everybody. They all lip sync. There's no way that somebody could dance at that high level and never be out of breath. So that's always an indication. But when you go to a concert, what are you going there to really listen to the quality of singing, or are you going to watch the show? It's the show. Watch some of these bands that got stuff blowing up all over the place, and you hear cymbals and all that going on. Ain't no hands moving, ain't no cymbals moving. You watching the lights and the stuff blowing up and this running and that person sliding across the stage. That's what you're paying attention to. So that's what you go. Like you watch the halftime shows at the football game, and you see the halftime, all that's pre-recorded to eliminate any possible mistakes. They can't afford for you to have a mistake. So what we used to do is actually go in the studio and make a live version of the show. You had the album version, but you had the live version of the show. It was 2 separate tapes. But that's the business of operating. If you somebody like Beyonce and you're performing 7 days on, 2 off, and dancing as much as you do, there's no way that you could hold up that long. You would fall apart. I don't care what kind of shape you're in. You wouldn't be able to maintain it. It's too much. So it's just that's part of the game. So what I'm gonna do is like I said, we're gonna make this real informal. Y'all can ask any questions. It don't matter what it is. It could be about life, music industry, film industry. Also, I have a bachelor's I got my bachelor's from Berkeley. I have a master's in technology from Jackson State. I got my ed specialist from Jackson State. I got an MBA from Mississippi College. I got a law degree from Mississippi College, and I'm getting a PhD from Jackson State. I did my MBA, my PhD. I'm one of the people that like to just be busy all the time, so I don't really sit around much. So I got my JD, my MBA, and my PhD all at the same time. I was in school at the same time with all 3 of them.
So I want to know how has your educational background helped you to further what you were already interested in?
Well, the education portion of it, especially the law degree, it really helped out with the contracts and stuff. Like I can really decipher contracts, I can write contracts, I'm real good at negotiating deals. The MBA side really helped, as far as being able to finance, manage money, stuff like that. The music industry is really about making deals. The music industry is not about music. It's about making deals. It's about putting deals together. It's not about music. If it was about music, you wouldn't have the stuff you have on the radio. Your greatest artists are the ones you never hear. All your greatest artists are underground artists. The stuff you hear on the radio, they're just pushing that because they're marketing. That's it. I know y'all like Migos, but no way they should have been a #1 group. They got way better artists out there. But they're a gimmick. They're a good gimmick, and they'll last for a little while, and they'll make a lot of money, and then they'll be gone. The question is, how much money will they make?
Not that much.
Like when TLC did Crazy Sexy Cool. TLC's album Crazy Sexy Cool sold they made $250 million off that record. TLC got $50,000 a piece.
Not much.
They made $50,000 out of an album that made $250 million. That's what you're looking at. That's the only way now. Independent, a lot of artists, are y'all familiar with a 360 deal? Who said yes? Tell me about it.
Whatever you make the price of you get 50%.
That's just a regular record deal. They're going to get you on that anyway. First of all, y'all got to understand, a record deal is nothing but a loan. Everything they give you, they're going to get back that and more. They're gonna rob you. So a record deal, it's pretty much a good chance you ain't going to make no money on a record deal. If you go out here and let's say, you got a $1 million record deal, which they don't even do that no more. But if you get $1 million record deal, they're going to send you on a photo shoot. That photo shoot is going to cost you $50,000. When you could have got that money, had your friend shoot your photos, for 500, but they're gonna charge you 50 grand. They're gonna give you all your parties, they're gonna put you in limousines, they're gonna give you the presidential suite, you're gonna fly first class with you and all your entourage. When the royalties come back and it's time to cut those checks, who do you think is paying for all of that? Not the label. You paying for it. The artist is always the last person to get paid. And you don't get paid until they recoup, which means they get back all of the money they spent on you. You don't get paid till then. So 99% of the time you make that much or you may owe the label. It happens all the time. Now, a 360 deal is, in the beginning, labels used to make the majority of their money off of record sales. But as you know, records don't sell today. And streaming is really killing the game for artists. So records are not selling today, so they feel as though, since we helped to make your name what it is, everything that you touch, 360 degrees, everything that's associated with your name as an artist, we want a piece of it. So now that's what a 360 deal is. They want a percentage of your records. They want a percentage of your live shows. If you have a fan club, they want a percentage. If you write a book, they want a percentage. If you open a restaurant in your name as an artist, they want a percentage. If you got Beyonce used car dealership, they want a percentage of it. Anybody would be absolutely crazy to sign a deal like that. But they're signing them every day. Now, the trade-off is, if you're a brand new artist and nobody knows you, and they can put that machine behind you and make you a household name, and you cool with not making any money up front, that might be worth it. Because once your contract is over, now you're a household name, everybody know you, you can take that and run with it. So that's the trade-off. You know, it depends on how you want to work the deal.
How would you describe your experience at Berkeley?
It was eye-opening. Like, you know, coming from HBCUs, you know, and I walked into Berkeley, like 95% of the students at Berkeley are international students. So when you walk in, you know, I was a bass player, you know, I played upright bass. You know, you walk in, you know, first thing I saw was a little Asian girl that played bass. And I wasn't even nowhere near where she was playing. I mean, she was, you know, she could bow in the whole thing, like she really was on it. But you know, it was the culture shock of dealing with, you know, because when you come from the South, you're usually dealing with Southern white, Southern black. That's pretty much how diverse it's gonna get. You got a sprinkle of international people, but majority is Southern white, Southern black. You go there, you're a minority, big time. I mean, just American students are minority. But when I walked into Berkeley, it was, because you know, they're sponsored by all of the major product companies. So they got all of the major gear, they got all of the, you know, and then I got a chance to see different careers that I didn't know anything about. Like, they had a degree, you could get a degree in sound design. So all of these keyboards and synthesizers y'all play, a lot of them sounds were developed by Berkeley students. They made the sounds that's in those keyboards. And they actually got paid to do that, being a student. You know, they had full studios that ran, they had 4 full studios that ran 24 hours a day in the basement. Like, you was constantly recording all the time. It was fully blown. They got a whole film scoring department where you actually score cartoons and short films, because BU has a film school. Boston University has a film school, so their students would bring the films over and you would score those films. So you had a lot of hands-on with a lot of stuff. So, but when we were walking to the lobby, you know, Quincy Jones' son was there, you know. I was a mentor to George Benson's son. You know, it was Lela Hathaway graduated with me. You know, it was just all kinds of people that was just always around. A lot of major artists would come to Berkeley to get their bands. So they would come, like Brian McKnight got his band. That's how I met him. He got his band from Berkeley. So, you know, that's how, you know, it's just for the networking purposes, Berkeley was very valuable. As far as the skills, I mean, it's 12 notes of music. I mean, what you learn in Berkeley is what you learn here. It just depends on how much you practice and how much work you put in. If you're serious about it, what you learn here, you can learn there. It's the same thing. The only difference is the network. And that $63,000 a year you got to pay.
How many different like job options you find for the music education major besides like
For a music education major? Well, it just really depends on what you want to do. You know, because like my job, my first job with Winton was a music copyist. I didn't even know what it was. He said, "You want to be a music copyist?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I need a job, but I don't even know what it is. What is it?" What it is was he would give me a score, and I would take that score and write out all the parts, transpose them, and then make a C score for him so he could read it easily on the spot. So I did all the orchestration, did arrangements and stuff like that. That launched my whole career in the jazz world.
So the job is music copyist anymore?
Yeah, and they make very good money. You get paid $23 a page. So if you got a score that's got 60, 70 pages.
You were doing it all by hand, I think.
Well, no, I was using a program. I started off by hand with a calligraphy pen, but then it moved to I was using a program called Encore, and then I got endorsed by Finale. But I got endorsed by Finale, but I was still using Encore because it was easier to me. At that time, Finale was very difficult. So every year I was just getting tons of Finale programs, but it was hard to use. Huh?
It was the old manuals and Finale. You got 3.
Oh yeah, it was 3 big books. It was 3 books that thick, and I definitely wasn't about to sit down and read that. That wasn't gonna happen. There wasn't no YouTube to look at, so I mean, y'all have a lot of perks now because y'all got YouTube and all this stuff. It's amazing what y'all can do. We didn't even have the internet.
My question is, now that the industry has changed to what it is now, what would you say are the educational steps to further yourself in the music industry?
As far as education,
Yes.
get into the technology side because that's where a lot of music is going. So I mean, get into the music tech. That's why I wish a lot of HBCUs would embrace the technology more because that's where the music is going. You know, it's like I do 95% of my sessions. I do it with top world-class musicians who can't read a lick of music because they can really play, but they know how to sequence. They know how to do this. They know everything they need to do. If they need to transport, they just hit the button in the computer and transpose it. You know, if they play a bad note, they go in and change that one note. You know what I mean? That's where the technology. That's where the music industry is. Like we did a session not too long ago where we had the rhythm section in Mississippi, but the guy playing the horn section was in California, and we recorded it via internet. So we did a live session via the internet, and what they did was set their phone up, and we had Skype going both ways so we could communicate. And we cut the session like that. So they didn't have to fly here, we didn't have to fly there, it was done. So I would focus more on the technology side.
What is like the educational, can you go somewhere to put yourself in that position?
To do technology stuff?
Yeah.
You gotta go.
Technology stuff.
You gotta go where schools embrace it, or else you gotta find some funding to help the schools step their program. I'm still waiting for an HBCU to really, really embrace that because they would take over. You would pick up all the students. You would pick up a large number of students because a lot of students love studio stuff. They do. I mean, they want to get into it, but they don't have an outlet. That's why your Berkeley's and them dominate. Middle Tennessee State. That's why they're doing real well. That's why it is. I mean, you got grants and stuff like that. Those are programs. If you get them up and running, those are programs that would be self-sustaining. They would take care of themselves. You wouldn't have to keep funneling money through the university. They would take care of themselves. You could run a studio, have students working as interns in the studio, and you could run the studio 24 hours a day, and it would completely pay for itself and pay for everybody.
I met our other friend, Daryl.
Dickinson, yeah.
I met Daryl at Middle Tennessee State, and that's how we kind of formed the D.B. King Recording Studio on campus, right? And just so the students understand, Middle Tennessee State started having so many students trying to get into school, they raised their entrance bar to mathematics to try to cut to the chase that all the students who were actually going to do the work they would be of a mathematical intelligence, so that they wouldn't be, wasting their time in engineering, knowing around. So it's still a lot of study. There's no way to escape the idea that you're gonna have to be still good at what you do.
I mean, you gotta put the work in. I mean, the bottom line, you can't shortchange it. You gotta put in the work. I mean, it is. I mean, I literally, when I say I lived in the studio, I lived it. Like literally. I lived on the machines. I mean, I read all the manuals. Every manual was in there. I read it from cover to cover. Like, I wanted to know how to do it. Most people I run into today, they just learn just enough to get by. And when they run into a snag, then now you got to call somebody to get you out of their trouble. Learn the whole thing. You want to be an engineer? I mean, technology is so cheap now. I mean, for probably less than $5,000, you got a world-class studio. I spent $100 grand on mine. That was in the early 90s. If I was my same studio now would cost me about $15,000 because of technology. Because everything is software based now.
I want to ask a quick question. You mentioned how everything is so technology based, but as an engineer, how often do you find yourself using the foundational knowledge of music theory and orchestration and form analysis, all that kind of stuff? How much of that do you use day to day? 95%
of the time, the producers that come into sessions, especially rap producers, they have no idea about anything like that. So on the slide, a lot of times you end up being the producer of the session. But you got to learn how to be diplomatic enough not to make them feel inferior. So you got to say, like, a rapper had some horn players come in, and of course they were completely out of tune. And he didn't know to ask them to tune up. So I was like, man, you ever thought about, man, don't they sound a little out of tune? What you think? Oh, he said, oh yeah, y'all need to tune up. So I kind of put it in his ear and let him do it. But the bottom line is, like, like this vocalist might be singing in the background, be completely out of tune, or he'll take a sample from here and the sample don't match the track. I was like, well, you gotta pitch the sample, you gotta do this to make it in tune. That's where your theory comes into play. Your form, like, this is the A section, this is the B section, this is C, this is the bridge, this is the interlude, and all of that. This is your outro. A lot of times they don't know that, So, man, throw some ad-libs on here. What's that? Oh, don't worry about it. We got it. We take care of it. Then you explain it to them. It's a teaching process. So the more you understand music, the more you have an understanding of it, the better it helps you.
And one of the things, too, is that the terminology has shifted so much until most of the new kind of, I'm going to use the word just because I don't know what else to call it, the wannabe musician guys, they have a language all by themselves, so when they do encounter musicians, they think they're talking about one thing and somebody's talking about a whole other thing.
I had a lady not too long ago, she said, we was in a session, I was mixing her record, and she said, can you make this song a little more orange? Exactly, that's the same thing I did. I was like, what are you talking about? What she wanted it brighter. So I said, why don't you just say that? You know what I mean? I said, so, when I work with artists, I say one of the main things that you definitely have to learn is the studio terminology. Like, you need to know, so at least, even if you don't know how to do it, you need to know what you're asking for. Like, what's the difference between a delay and a reverb? What's the difference between the different types of EQs? You need to understand what you're dealing with. Well, can you make this, little lady said, can you make this go tick, 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 tick? What is tick, 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 tick? She wanted the delay. She wanted an echo. She wanted an echo on the song. So, I mean, it's like, you have to learn how to deal with it. Like any of y'all, like, let me pick me a guinea pig here. Let's see. If you wanted to, or actually, I'm going to do what I do with people all the time. Who want to be an aspiring artist here? Now, I want me a good, he already asked the question. Give me a good guinea pig here. All right, I got you. If me and my man right here, we was on the elevator and we were talking right now, we were saying, hey, I just signed a deal with Sony, they're gonna finance $10 million. We're in the elevator, we're going up 100 floors now. Keep that in your head. And he and I talking, I said, Sony just approved $10 million for a deal. All we gotta do is we gotta find some artists to sign. What do you do? What do you do at that point? Now, we on the elevator. This elevator move. We getting off on 100th floor. We moving now. We on floor 5 now. Now what? Well, come on. You didn't quit already? So you ain't gonna get your deal. So let's see, who else? Who up? There we go, we got one back here, go ahead. We on floor 15 now, we rolling. Yeah. And me and him, we talking about the deal. We not even paying attention to you. Now, he and I are executives, right? We executives, right? Do you really think I care about how well you sing? As an executive, what is important to me? No. What is important to me as an executive? What about the money? What about it? What's important to me is the bottom line. If I spend some money on you, what's the 2 factors that I'm concerned with? Well, that's one of them. Say it again. And what's the other? No, that's getting my money back. Now, what's the other one when it comes to dealing with an artist? You're in the ball. You real close. You real close. The 2 things as an executive the 2 things that a music executive is concerned with is, one, can I make my money back? And can I minimize my risk? If you're an artist that's constantly in trouble, unreliable, always in jail, you always smoking, you risk it. Am I going to spend this money on you and before we finish the record, you locked up? Or somebody kill you? Every time we send you out to do a promotional event, are you going to get into a fight with somebody and now we getting sued? That's a risk issue. So that's what we're dealing with. So you want somebody who's marketable enough to get your money back, but also you want to minimize your risk as much as possible, because if you got a high risk level, what's the chance of me getting my money back? So that's how you got to think about it. So let's go back to it. We back in the elevator. We're on floor 20. What's the conversation you need to have with me? You already an independent artist. You already been working on your career? All right, well then talk to me. Because I'm really, first of all, he and I talking, I'm really not paying attention to you.
Alright, I guess I talk to you, tell you about my background.
No, pitch it. You pitching right now.
Also, you want me to talk?
Yes, you pitching right now.
How you doing? I heard
He say so. How you doing?
I heard you were looking for an artist, and I was willing if you would take a few minutes to talk to me about it, and
Man, you know how many artists I have?
But how many artists do you have that are gonna be like?
Oh yeah, you fell right in my trap too. Keep going. You fell right in my trap too. Keep going.
I'll show up whenever you need me to. If you call me, I'm
You know how many
there.
artists I hear that from?
Everyone.
How many gonna mean it?
Huh?
How many gonna mean it though?
You know how many artists I hear that from?
I can back it up.
You know how many artists I hear? I mean, everything you telling me right now, everything you're telling me right now is the same thing that every single artist says. I work hard. I come off the top of my head. I'm always reliable. You're gonna make millions with me. I hear that all the time. I got artists right now. I'm gonna tell you how bad it is. I was in a funeral. I was a pallbearer, and an artist gave me his CD while I was carrying the casket. That's how serious it is out here.
Well, I'm gonna give my contact.
I don't want your number. And you really ain't gonna get that. But what are we talking about? But see, now what I want you to understand. Now think about this. All right, check this out. You just talked to me for 5 minutes. I don't know no more about you now than we first started. I know nothing about you. As an artist, I know absolutely nothing about you. Now, how would that conversation would have been if you would have said, hey, my name is such and such, I overheard your conversation, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm an artist, I'm already in the studio working on my product, I've spent my own money. You know, I've already invested X amount of dollars, I have a Facebook following and a social media following of blah, 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 blah. You know, I already have my publishing and my copyrights already in place. We already have a street team, we're working on the street trying to develop, and if we can partner up with your resources, I think that we can take this to a higher level, but understand whether you come on board or not, I'm going to keep going. So I don't really need you, but your resources could help. That's a much different conversation. Now I'm paying attention to you now, 'cause I'm like, wait a minute, you done did your work, you done invested your own money. You know, now the conversation is much more different. Well, then you need to tell them, but you need to have some sort of a plan. You need to have, what an executive want to know is at least you thought through the process. You know, when I have somebody come to me and say, yo, I'm a songwriter, I got a song, I want to write for you, whatever. I say, well, let me hear what you got. Well, I ain't got nothing recorded yet. Well, where's your song? Let me see your song, let me see your notebook or whatever. Well, you know, I ain't. So what are we talking about? Oh, I'm a poet. Or I write poems. Well, let me hear one of your poems. Well, I don't have it memorized. Excuse me? What are we talking about? Oh, I'm a filmmaker. Well, let me see one of your films. Oh, I haven't shot none yet. So then you're not a filmmaker. So what are we talking about? So you understand, we're talking to an executive, you're not talking to one of your friends. This man is a businessman. He's thinking numbers, he's thinking bottom line, he's thinking contract, he's thinking business. So you have to talk to him in that language. Most artists never, ever, ever develop a 5-minute elevator pitch. That's called that 5-minute elevator pitch. You need to be able to tell this person everything about you within 5 minutes. Because even if he steps off that elevator, he'll remember you. Now y'all can talk at a later date. But if you just saying, oh, I'm going to jump on top of the desk and I'm going to start rapping, I'm going to say, I remember that clown on top of the desk. But I'm not about to spend no money because he already crazy. You understand what I'm saying? So that's how y'all get it? You want to try again now? No, she didn't quit on me. She didn't quit the industry already. Go ahead.
With the music industry has changed so much and everything's social media, how can you tell as an artist what's a scam? As in getting record deals?
The whole record industry is a scam. The whole record. One thing people got to always keep in mind that there's only one business that's more cutthroat and more ruthless than the entertainment industry, and that's the drug game. And I would say 75% of those people are the music industry. You know, so that's where your knowledge of business and legal aspects, that's where you can protect yourself. Most artists who get in the industry, they're strictly artists. They don't want to learn the business. They don't want to learn anything pertaining to that. So you have to learn the business side. Like somebody tell me what you use a copyright for. So what is the purpose of a copyright? Protect what? So how much you get paid for a copyright? How much money does copyrights make? Huh? But how much money do you make off the copyright? Set him up again. Zero. Only thing copyrights are for, only thing the purpose of a copyright is to prove that you have ownership. Also, the other thing is you cannot sue somebody unless you've copywritten and registered with the Copyright Office. So even if somebody steals it, you can't sue them until you register. Anybody here know what a poor man copyright is? Tell them what it is.
Send it to yourself in the mail.
All right. Is that a legitimate form of copyright? Yeah. No. It will not hold up. Supreme Court said it will not hold up. Why? No, but why? The purpose of the poor man's copyright was to, I would say, if I put my CD in this package and I mailed it to myself, the post date stamp that they stamp on there would prove that I had written it at this date. That was the purpose of it. What's wrong with that, though?
You can manipulate it easily.
How? No? Close though. Anybody know? What would happen if I mailed myself an empty envelope and never sealed it? And you get the postmark on it. I could come back 3 years later and put the CD in it and seal it. And say that it actually was written 3 years earlier. I could easily do that. And there's no way that you could prove that I did. That's how it could be manipulated. That's why it won't hold up. All right? How do you get paid in the music industry?
And Ron, we're going to bring to a close in about our time.
That's fine.
And Ron, of course, we can set up anything, contacts, email, you know, some type of accessibility, but we also want to be remembering what he's already talked about. People who are serious, they do serious things. And so you have to start trying to calculate it, and of course, most of you know me, I'm the guy y'all avoid. So in the process of you avoiding me, you might be doing your own self, like weakening your possibility, because there are so many connections to the world out there. And if you don't know what that is, your starting point, well, I'll put it like this. I always say, opportunity is no better than your preparation.
I tell you like this, I'm gonna tell you something that I've done for many years. I would go to HBCUs and I'd always run into an artist, aspiring artist, and say, hey man, I want to record something, but I don't have any money. So every year I would tell them, come to the studio, I will record for you for free. I'll record at least 1 or 2 songs for free. Within the last 6 years, I have not had a single person show up. However, if I charge that person, they will. So I just charge them. It doesn't make any sense, because if you don't have any money, I'll just say, you know, I'm telling you, come on, I'll help you out. But like he's saying, if you got access to people, use it. Don't be afraid. The worst thing they can do is tell you no. I used to bug the hell out of people on a regular basis.
Unfortunately, we're out of time.
Well, I'm gonna stick around for about an hour or so. So I mean, if y'all want to chop it up, that's cool. You know, we can get in touch. I'll give you my number. We can talk.
And next,
I want to remind everybody we're going to be in the band room. Next week's recital is in the band hall. So be sure you're on time, and I'll get your attendance cards when we get done.
wait a minute. I don't understand.
How you get paid in the music? How did you get paid?
Well, thank you, Elijah,
Oh, through publishing, ASCAP and BMI.
for taking care of
One more time.
Through publishing companies, ASCAP and BMI.
Hey, thank you. Hey, wait a minute, y'all. Let's give at least a warm